thank you for joining us on our session on critical skills visas in South Africa today. Thank you, Andreas. We will first start off talking about the basics of the critical skills visa in South Africa, and then we will break down the required steps to let you know what you have to do to acquire a critical skills visa for South Africa. Andreas, can you maybe just explain to us the basics of a critical skills visa?
Yes, sure. So I think the principle is really that people with certain predefined skills are eligible to apply for critical skills visa. It's issued for up to 5 years. If the employment contract is shorter, then it will be issued for shorter. The other limiting factor could be your passport duration, so always check that. But basically it's for local employment, so you get a local employment contract up to 5 years, and the beauty about it is that it offers a very good path to permanent residence. As a matter of fact, probably the most or the only really suitable path to permanent residence based on a work permit.
Okay, great. So what would be the first step if I want to acquire a critical skills visa?
Yeah, so there are basically 3 or 4, but really 3 major steps, right? So the first one is the SAkwa application. Now we'll come later to what SAkwa is, okay? The second one would be to apply for a letter from a professional body confirming your critical skills, and we will go into much more detail later in this video. And then obviously the overseas submissions, because for first-time applicants you need to submit overseas. That would be the last step. Now, if you apply for permanent residence based on critical skills, there's actually an additional step after the recent change, which is the MIE reference checking, but for temporary residence that's not really required. So these are fundamentally the 3 steps.
Okay, perfect. So maybe tell us a little bit more about SAkwa. What do we need to do?
So SAkwa is the South African Qualification Authority. Okay, and Mozambique has it, lots of other countries have it as well. Basically, your foreign degrees gets transferred or translated into the South African equivalent. We have an NQF level, National Qualification, I don't know, level probably, from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. And your degrees getting transferred into this level. So traditionally, for instance, matric would be level 4, a professional qualification level 5, and then a bachelor degree tends to be 7, no? Right?
Yes.
Okay. And then an honors degree is a level 8, and then a doctorate or whatever higher qualifications even would be then a 9 and a 10. Okay. Now in the old days, pre-COVID, SAkwa was fairly reliable. I also have to say that SAkwa used to be quite clued up with all the different countries. So they have internal country specialists. So the country specialists for Germany or for the US, they really know the education system in the country. And they would then reach out to the universities and try to confirm that these qualifications were obtained there. Now, that is a practical problem because some of the universities, obviously for data protection reasons, they don't reveal easily the information. In practice, we're solving it that way that the applicants really give authorizing SAkwa to inquire, or even informing the university that SAkwa will reach out to them. So that's really, really a stumbling block. Now, past COVID, the processing time have unfortunately increased to 4 to 5 months. Do not ask me why. I do not know the answer. Please phone SAkwa and inquire and put pressure on them, because 4 to 5 months is just ridiculous. Because if we want to attract critical skills and highly skilled people to South Africa, they cannot wait 12 months until they start their visa. So that's SAkwa. In principle, it's required for everybody. It's always the first step because a lot of professional bodies require SAkwa.
Okay. And it's only professional qualifications, educational qualifications. I cannot count work experience.
No, you can't. So unfortunately not. And SAkwa really looks at educational qualifications. Okay. Oh yeah, maybe one very important thing to say. After the recent changes, most critical skills categories require a level 8. That's an honors degree. It used to be a level 5 or 6, so maybe sometimes 7. So usually bachelors were fine. South Africa now looks for most times for honors degrees and higher, which I personally don't agree with, but then I don't get often asked from the legislator. Anyway, let's continue.
And then, so now I've obtained my SAkwa certificate. Mm-hmm. What is then the next step?
The next step is obtaining the recommendation or the confirmation of the critical skill, and that's a professional body's job. Okay, so depending in which sector you are, so if you're applying for critical skills based on IT skills, there's a professional body in charge of IT skills. Now that one is great, because if you have all documents and you really provide everything they want, they actually issue the recommendation letter or the confirmation letter within 6 weeks. If you're an engineer, that's going to take 3 or 4 months. So it really depends on the professional body how long it takes to get the letter. Now, except for EXA, which is the Engineering Council, all professional bodies require the SAkwa certificate first. So if SAkwa takes 4 to 5 months or 3 to 4 months and the professional body takes 3 to 4 months, you can imagine already where we are sitting, okay? And then really from a practical point, really important is that one submits all requested documents from the start. That will tremendously improve the processing times at the professional body. If you don't do that, there's lots of back and forth, and that leads to, well, unpleasant delays.
Okay. And I can't run SAkwa and the professional body registration at the same time?
No, you can't, except for EXA.
Okay.
Because they require SAkwa to start their registration process.
Okay. And there's always a required professional body for my special critical skills.
So it doesn't have to be a statutory body, it can also be a professional body, but actually there are lists available on the internet and at the bodies or at the Department of Higher Education, etc., which body is in charge of which critical skills category.
Okay. And IBN can do both of this on behalf of the client?
Yes, so I think the beauty is if you assist you with the visa is that we really try to submit comprehensive applications and avoid this email ping pong. Yeah, but we can't really do much about the long processing time, so please complain and change something.
Okay. Okay, and now I've got my SAkwa, I've got my professional body registration. What's my next step?
So parallel to SAkwa and the professional body, we obviously compile the whole private application, the rest of the application, with the personal documents, medical, radiological, police clearances, etc. And once the last document, like professional body, comes out, we usually are ready to send the application out to the applicant, who then has to submit in the country of residence or passport. They need to submit it in person at the South African mission. And while before COVID, the processing times were 4 to 5 weeks at most missions, sometimes faster, sometimes a little bit slower. We're now looking at probably another 3 to 4 months processing times in most missions, because the Home Affairs has decided to centralize the processing in Pretoria, and that has led to tremendously long processing times. By the way, we're recording this video in, what do we have now? July 2022. So obviously if you watch it in a year or so, it might have changed. But at the moment, the long processing times is a reoccurring topic, and it's very frustrating. But yes, you must submit overseas, and your passport usually remains with the mission, so you cannot plan massive travels. Yeah, and that's the last step. And then you get your visa, and then the visa is only valid or enters into validity once you entered South Africa. Okay, so that's when it becomes valid and on the system active.
Okay, and so how would I know if what I have studied is on the critical skills list? How do I know if I qualify?
So you can just Google critical skills list South Africa, and you will find it immediately on Google. You must just look at the publishing date. I think the one was now January or February 2022, so that you would look at early 2022. That's the updated one and not a draft. And then you will see about 140 professions, and they're pretty clearly described. So I think most people get a good idea if they fall into it. And
then if I see my qualifications are in line with the critical skills list, can I then come to South Africa and do any job?
Yeah, so no,
okay.
No. Good question. So once you have a critical skills visa, they usually are issued with an employer on the critical skills visa. Okay, so you're limited to that employer, and also you're supposed to work in the field of your profession. Okay, so where often was confusing was for language skills, right? So German used to be on the list, and I think now is still. But you need to work in a BPO sector or outsourcing sector, and not just because you're German, you speak German, you don't have a critical skill. And if you're IT, you should work in IT. Luckily, IT is obviously extremely broad, so are managerial positions, but some are very specific, so you need to work in the field.
And how does it look like with work experience? Do I need work experience, or is my degree enough?
So for temporary residence, the degree is enough. For permanent residence, you need work experience. Okay. But most people in our experience, to be honest, do not come to South Africa right after their studies to apply for critical skills. Most have worked, even if they were students or they had a sabbatical or something like that.
And I think one question that was quite hot as well out there is, what about foreigners that study towards a critical skill here in South Africa? Do they automatically get a visa? Do they still need to apply for critical skills visa?
So now they have to apply for critical skills visa and they need to find a job. They just don't get it just because they studied it. So unfortunately. Yeah, but that's the basics. I hope you found this very useful. And if you have further questions, then please contact either Kristin or myself or just the website. Look for other updates, like us, and do the whole usual social media thing. My marketing guy always tells me I should say that. So please do that, and tune in again for some updates. Cheers, guys. Thanks.